this episode, we focus on three pieces of infrastructure that quietly hold networks together, and we look at how protecting them helps prevent a category of threats that can feel confusing to new learners: control plane attacks. The control plane is the part of an environment that helps systems find each other, trust each other, and connect reliably, which means attackers who can influence it can cause widespread damage without needing to break into every system individually. Network Access Control, NAC, decides which devices are allowed to join a network and what they are allowed to do once connected. Domain Name System, DNS, helps devices translate human-friendly names into the network addresses they need to connect to services. Network Time Protocol, NTP, helps devices agree on the correct time, which sounds simple until you realize many security systems depend on time being accurate. If any of these are compromised or misused, attackers can redirect traffic, bypass access policies, and break authentication in ways that are difficult to diagnose. The goal is to understand why these services are part of the control plane, what kinds of attacks target them, and how architects apply protections that reduce risk without breaking normal operations. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A good first step is to define what makes an attack a control plane attack, because it is not about controlling a single application, but about controlling the rules and utilities the whole environment relies on. If an attacker compromises an application server, that is serious, but the damage may be limited to that server and the data it can reach. If an attacker can influence DNS responses, they can redirect many users and services to malicious destinations, potentially capturing credentials or distributing malware at scale. If an attacker can manipulate NTP time, they can cause authentication tokens to fail, logs to be misleading, and security checks based on time to break. If an attacker can bypass NAC, they can connect unauthorized devices and gain a foothold inside trusted networks. Control plane attacks are powerful because they affect foundational assumptions, like which devices belong, where services live, and whether time-based trust checks are reliable. That makes defenses at this level very valuable, because they can prevent large-scale compromise or confusion. For beginners, the key idea is that protecting the control plane protects the environment's basic ability to make correct decisions. Network Access Control, NAC, is best understood as a gatekeeper for network participation, and it helps answer a fundamental question: should this device be allowed on this network at all, and if so, under what restrictions? Without NAC, a wired port or a wireless network can become an open invitation, where any device that can connect physically or over the air gains network access. With NAC, the environment can require a device to prove it is known and authorized before granting access. NAC can also apply different levels of access, such as placing unknown devices into a restricted area where they can only reach limited services. This is important because not all devices are equal, and a guest device or an unmanaged device should not be treated the same as a managed corporate laptop. NAC supports containment by limiting what a compromised device can reach and by reducing the chance that rogue devices can join sensitive networks. In security architecture, NAC is a tool for enforcing segmentation at the moment of connection, which is where many attacks begin. A common NAC-related control plane attack is simply bypassing device admission, which can happen through stolen credentials, spoofed device identities, or misconfigurations that allow unauthorized access. If the network trusts a device based only on a simple identifier that can be copied, then an attacker may be able to imitate an authorized device. Another attack is exploiting weak onboarding processes, where devices are added casually without proper verification, making it easy for unauthorized devices to appear legitimate. There is also the risk of lateral trust, where once a device is admitted to one area, it can reach too much, effectively turning admission into broad trust. Architecturally, protections for NAC include requiring strong identity for devices, limiting what a device can do even after admission, and continuously monitoring for changes in device behavior. Admission should be tied to a clear inventory of authorized devices, and access should be tied to roles or categories, not to the idea that once inside the network, everything is trusted. When NAC is designed well, it does not merely block outsiders. It creates a structured way to manage device trust. Domain Name System, DNS, is a critical control plane service because it influences where systems connect. And if you can influence DNS, you can influence traffic flows and trust relationships. Most people type names, not addresses, and services often rely on names to locate other services, which means DNS is constantly in use. A basic DNS attack is poisoning or spoofing, where a device receives a false answer and connects to the wrong place. That wrong place might be a malicious server designed to steal credentials, deliver malware, or imitate a real service. Another DNS-related problem is when internal systems trust DNS answers from untrusted sources, such as accepting responses from a device on a guest network or from an attacker-controlled server. DNS can also be abused for disruption, such as denial of service against DNS infrastructure, which can make many services appear broken because systems cannot resolve names. Architects therefore treat DNS as sensitive infrastructure, protect who can provide answers, and ensure that clients are configured to trust only approved resolvers. The goal is to prevent attackers from using name resolution as a steering wheel for the environment. Protecting DNS starts with controlling the sources of truth and reducing the chance that clients will accept false information. One key protection is ensuring that internal clients use approved resolvers and that those resolvers are hardened and monitored. Another is limiting who can update DNS records, because unauthorized record changes can redirect traffic just as effectively as spoofing. Architects also design for redundancy, because if name resolution fails, many services fail in confusing ways, and outages create pressure to bypass security controls. Logging and monitoring of DNS queries can provide valuable visibility, because unusual name lookups can indicate malware activity, data exfiltration attempts, or reconnaissance. DNS protections also include careful segmentation, placing DNS servers in appropriate infrastructure zones, and controlling access to them from various network segments. The important beginner lesson is that DNS is not just a convenience service. It is part of the trust fabric of a network. If it is unreliable or untrusted, the entire environment becomes easier to manipulate. Network Time Protocol, NTP, may seem like a minor technical detail, but it is a cornerstone of many security processes because time is used to decide whether an event is valid, whether a token has expired, and whether logs can be correlated. If time is wrong, authentication systems that rely on time-based tokens can reject valid users or accept invalid tokens depending on how the drift occurs. If time is manipulated, logs can become misleading, making it difficult to reconstruct an incident and easy for attackers to hide activity. Some cryptographic systems also rely on time for certificate validation, session lifetimes, and replay protections, which means time problems can cascade into many failures. NTP can be attacked by spoofing time responses, by forcing devices to sync with malicious time sources, or by disrupting legitimate time infrastructure. These attacks can create subtle damage, such as intermittent authentication failures that look like random outages, or misordered logs that confuse detection efforts. Architects therefore treat time as a security dependency, not just an operational convenience. Protecting NTP begins with defining trusted time sources and controlling which systems can serve time and which systems can query time. Clients should be configured to use approved time servers, and networks should restrict access so that random devices cannot act as time authorities. Time servers should themselves be monitored and protected because compromise of a central time source can affect many systems at once. Architects also design for redundancy, using multiple trustworthy time sources so that if one fails or becomes unreliable, systems can still maintain accurate time. They also consider the impact of time drift and ensure that systems handle small discrepancies gracefully, because harsh time enforcement without planning can create outages. Logging should record time synchronization events and significant shifts, because large time jumps can be a sign of attack or misconfiguration. The overall goal is to make time reliable enough that security systems can depend on it, while making it hard for attackers to use time manipulation as a weapon. A key architecture concept that connects NAC, DNS, and NTP is that these services are both widely used and widely trusted, which makes them attractive targets and makes mistakes high impact. They are also often shared across zones, because many segments need access to them, which can create hidden trust paths if not designed carefully. For example, if an IoT zone can influence DNS or NTP, it might become a stepping stone to broader manipulation. If guest networks can reach internal control plane services, attackers might use those pathways to probe or attack them. Architects therefore often place control plane services in dedicated infrastructure zones and use strict policy to define who can access them and how. They also avoid mixing control plane services with general-purpose workloads, because general-purpose workloads are more likely to be exposed and compromised. This zoning approach supports both security and operational clarity, because it makes it easier to monitor and manage foundational services. When the control plane has clear boundaries, it is easier to defend. Another important theme is that protections must preserve operations, because these services exist to make the environment function. If NAC blocks legitimate devices too often, teams may weaken it or bypass it, reducing security. If DNS protections cause name resolution to fail unpredictably, teams may change configurations quickly in ways that introduce trust gaps. If NTP protections make time synchronization brittle, authentication systems can fail and cause major disruption. Architects therefore design protections that are strict where they need to be strict, but also resilient and supportable. That includes clear processes for enrolling devices in NAC, well-managed change control for DNS updates, and well-planned maintenance and redundancy for NTP services. It also includes monitoring that can detect when protections are causing problems, so teams can fix issues without tearing down security. The most effective control plane protections are the ones that people can live with every day. Security that cannot be operated becomes security that gets disabled. When you step back, applying NAC, DNS, and NTP protections to prevent control plane attacks is about protecting the environment's ability to make correct decisions about who belongs, where to connect, and what time it is. NAC protects the admission and placement of devices so unauthorized or risky devices cannot easily join trusted networks. DNS protections preserve the integrity of name resolution so traffic goes where it is intended and attackers cannot steer connections through deception. NTP protections preserve accurate time so authentication, logging, and validation mechanisms work reliably and cannot be manipulated. Together, these controls reduce the attacker's ability to reshape the environment's basic trust assumptions, which is what makes control plane attacks so powerful. If you can clearly describe which devices may join, which servers may answer name questions, which sources provide time, and how these rules are enforced and monitored, you have designed a control plane that supports both security and operational reliability. That is the core architectural outcome this episode title is pointing you toward.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit BareMetalCyber.com.